It's the 24th day of May in the year of our Lord 2015. And this is the Radical Agnostic, broadcasting from Tucson, Arizona, in the heart of the Sonoran Desert. My name is John. My co-host is Mark.
Hello.
And the stowaway guest is here, everybody, Brian Richter.
Hello.
I'm also proud to present our guest today, a woman of many talents and an all-around awesome human being, Dawne Osborne. Welcome to the program.
Hello.
Dawn. Radical agnosticism is a philosophical approach to life that rejects ideology, dogma, and I'm having trouble pinpointing how to describe it, but it rejects ideology and dogma, and it embraces... What does it embrace? Looking at both sides or every side, and then
Critical thinking.
And it's not the idea that you never arrive at a conclusion or an opinion. It's more that
you arrive at an informed one.
Informed, which everybody thinks their opinion is, so that's kind of not helpful.
Well, and also
I did till I found out it wasn't.
Right.
Not only do you, okay, so you have an informed opinion.
Eat the mic.
You have an informed opinion, or you can, but also you're still open to more new information.
Right.
You're not, if something new comes up and you learn about it, you're not like, oh, well, that's different than what I think, so no, I don't accept that.
Right. And I think one of the keys is you don't get your personal self-image invested in your opinions.
I was going to say you're informed with the absence of you. You have to put aside your prejudices.
Your prejudices and your, like, owning... Like, I define myself by being an uber liberal or a...
Well, if you didn't, we would.
Right. And then that's the other thing. I mean, I can't lay any claim to being in the middle of the road. I am a progressive leaning liberal on most things. However, and I hope this comes out, I accept and embrace the value of a lot of conservative points of view. Personal responsibility, the value of hard work, and many more. Anyway, let's not get too crazy. Guys, we're going to talk today about a bunch of stuff. I want to talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade agreement. I know that doesn't sound sexy, but I think we can make it. I want to talk about that frickin' 19 kids and counting guy, Duggar, Josh. Child molester.
Duggar. What a fucked up name for a child molester. Duggar.
Duggar.
I Duggared her.
I'm Duggar.
It's too perfect.
I'm going to use it like I used to be like, did you Sandusky that kid? And I'm going to be like, did you Duggar that girl, man? It's just fucking... I like people who are so fucked up that you can use their names as cuss words.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to add him to my...
Santorum.
Marge Shot. I used to use her. I'd stub my toe and be like, Marge Shot. Like,
I don't know who that is.
I don't know.
She's the racist owner of the Reds.
Oh.
Yeah, they made her sell the team. She made some disparaging comments.
It's like Donald Sterling.
This is way before.
Yeah, way back.
Because he man, so many comedians have turned that into gold, this Donald Sterling thing, because the recorded conversation, he never says the N-word. He's like, you can have sex with him. That's fine. Just don't bring him to the games. And don't post it on Facebook.
He's talking to his girlfriend.
Yeah, Sterling is talking to his girlfriend.
His girlfriend, who's black.
Right. Yeah, and he never said a racial slur.
Yeah. But that's I don't know. That's just another element of the absurdity of it. Is like he's talking to his girlfriend. She's black. He's telling her, "You can fuck them. Just don't bring them to my basketball games."
When the lights are out, you can't tell.
Yeah. Oh,
we're off to a good start.
All right.
And I hope my mom doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, no, we all hope that. But hi, Mom, I love you. We're also going to talk about the biker shootout. We're someone remind me if I forget to hit anger management with Brian Richter, our new segment.
That should be good.
Yeah, it's always good.
We've had a couple so far. They're fun.
The Mexican shootout, much worse than the biker one. If you guys don't know about that, I'll be talking about that too. We're going to talk to Dawne about her life and whatnot. And that's about it. That's all I have on the agenda.
It's a nice agenda, though.
But first,
pretty meaty.
We're going to talk. We're going to talk about Mad Max because Paula and I went to this cool theater called the Roadhouse Theater that's in Tucson now. There's 2 of them. You sit in like this huge overstuffed recliner. Have you been there, Dawn?
I just heard about this amazing.
It's
it
brand
used to be
new.
Crossroads.
Yeah.
And now it's the Roadhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Roadhouse.
And there's 2 of them now in Tucson. I believe there's a bunch in Phoenix too. It's an Arizona only thing so far. But you sit in like this huge recliner, like a lazy boy. It has, controls to make it go back and recline and everything. And then you get like a sliding table in front of you and drink holders, and waiters and waitresses come and you order dinner. And the food's like good. It's good. And they have good beer. And it was pretty great.
So what's the ticket? Is it expensive?
Yeah. No, it's like $12 each for the tickets, and then you have to, pay for the food and everything. It's not cheap.
But there's free popcorn, right?
Was it free?
That's what someone told me.
Yeah, I did see a bunch of people getting popcorn in big bowls, so maybe it is free.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you don't have to order food.
No, you don't have to get out of your seat to order food. Like they come to you.
Yeah, you sit there and
That's
you push a button. And it lights up.
But
and then they're in like a control room somewhere, like tied up. And then they run out when the button gets...
Release the waitress.
And are they all Thai lady boys?
No.
Oh.
They're actually...
shit. Well, you can't have it all.
Nope.
But that's the one question I had. So if they come out, you like press a button to order and they come out to get it. Are people coming out and walking around inside the theater constantly throughout the movie?
Yeah, but it's not annoying.
They
Somehow,
sneak through the dark. I was told they're very
sneak
quiet.
through the dark. Yeah.
With trays of food?
It's not annoying.
Ninja waitresses.
Just the way that it's set up, it's like low. It's a slanting down or something. So when they're walking, and they're always ducking down to it. And it must be a hard job, but it just didn't annoy me at all. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, they only hire midgets and hunchbacks.
Yeah,
that's it.
And they give you your food before the movie starts, so you're supposed to.
Well, that's what like if the movie started,
you can
still order.
Yes, yeah. You hit that button, and then what you can do is they give you a little card, and you write down what you want, and just hand it off to them instead of talking.
Gotcha.
Anyway, Mad Max, I loved it. I thought this is the first time in an action movie there were special effects this first time in like 20 years where I looked at it and I went, how did they do that? I'm like, I have no idea how they accomplished the visual effects that they did. Like, you'll see something like Avengers, and it'll be amazing, beautifully generated computer stuff, and it's really fun to look at. But you never go, how did they do that? You're just like, it's a green screen, and they just animated stuff behind it. And we know how that works. But Mad Max, like, I know all these trucks and cars, like 94% of the movie is trucks and cars driving at tremendous speeds while minions are jumping off and trying to blow. It's just insane action. And so I don't know how they did it.
Lots of explosions.
Tons. And it's intense. The sound is like, it's very artistic too. Like, Mark, do you remember the scene where they showed, it was just silent all of a sudden, and they showed you like a sand dune? And it looked like it was a landscape.
Yeah.
And then gradually it turns into something.
Right.
I don't know. It's just an artistic scene, so I don't even want to ruin that for anyone. But you think it's one thing, and then it's another. And it's just, that was a really cool thing for me. And
yeah, no, there's visually it's really good. Action-wise, it's fucking great. The problems I have with it basically is that, like you said, it's... They give you a little bit of a plot, and there's a bunch of questions that I have. I want to know why this, why, who are these people, what is their backstory, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But that's from my perspective, which I have seen the other three. You haven't seen the other three. This is the first one you've seen.
So you want to know how it connects with the overall story.
And I really like the world that it's based in, and I like the world building that they do, and I want to know more about it.
But that's
instead
that's
of just like.
But that's the hallmark of a great movie. It was like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the movie, but I would have enjoyed it more It'd be like, okay, if you watch Game of Thrones, I don't know if anyone does.
Oh, yeah.
But if you watch Game of Thrones, and then there was an episode where all you saw was people fighting. That was it. There was hardly any dialogue. Nobody talked about their character. And really, this isn't even like that because it's not an episode of a series. It's a movie in and of itself.
Yeah, but they do give you background if you like listen carefully in the beginning. There's like radio broadcasts that are kind of showing you how you got to this post-apocalyptic state. There was all these wars and stuff, so they give you backstory.
That backstory has already been.
Yeah.
I'm talking about. So the main bad guy, and then the other 2 or 3 main bad guys. Are they his brothers? What's up with,
Well, the really strong one, what looked like the Rock, that's his son.
Right. But you don't even learn the people's names until the credits roll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I would have liked to know stuff like that, like what was up with some of the mutations, what was up, like there's just a bunch of stuff that they don't give you that I wish they did.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm not saying don't go see it.
Yeah.
But this is stuff that I would have liked. And then also, like, there's the big thing about the feminism aspect of it.
Right.
And I can understand that. I get a little bit. But I also think that basically that just shows how awful Hollywood movies and stuff like that is in general towards female characters or feminism, if you want to call it that. It's like, to say that this is a really feminist movie, I think is a little bit of a reach. Well, and then, like I said, I think it's proof. If anything, it just shows how lacking that kind of stuff is in other movies, and how bad the environment is.
I can agree, but and this might just be me, but I thought that like when I saw Ex Machina, I had the same thing. I interpreted the whole movie in terms of like gender, because in Mad Max, I was thinking. Basically, and I think we all kind of know, if you haven't seen the movie, we know what Mad Max is about anyway. It's in a post-apocalyptic thing, and everyone's warriors, and there's just resources are scarce, and everything's horrible. To me, though, the world as it is in that movie is like masculinity unleashed, like with no feminine balance at all. Just pure masculinity where women are completely oppressed. So in that movie, there's women they're just like these big fat ladies hooked up to these pumps on their breasts, and the people drink that milk because it's nutritious. So women have this extraordinarily subjugated role in this universe, and then everyone's just a madman. They're all just driving around killing each other, and they're all like I said, minions. They'll die for the cause. It kind of was reminded me of like radical Islam in that way. Like these guys were ready to die, or Japanese suicide bombers in World War II. So that's how I do think it was pretty gendery and relevant to feminism.
Well, I guess
but it wasn't heavy-handed. There wasn't some woman who's like,
right.
No, it's like this, and then the man's like, what? Some stupid thing where the woman's just always right and perfect. It wasn't like that.
No. Well, that's probably what I'm thinking instead. Is like, because there are feminist ideas in it, and it's basically based on a lot of that. Like you said, women being subjugated to stuff, and then like the idea is that it's not like that, and the females can do whatever, same as men, and blah blah blah. It's just understated. It's not like you're not getting hit over the head with it.
Yeah, and I'm happy for that.
So I guess in terms of feminism, when I think of feminism, I think like someone hitting you over the head with these ideas.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't seem that way to me. And I think that some feminists, if that's their interpretation of feminism as well, they won't like the movie. They'll be like, that wasn't feminist.
Yeah.
Blah, blah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think some feminists might not like the movie, even though it's being touted as that. Last thing we'll say about this stupid movie, which I thought was great. I give it an A.
I give it a B.
Okay.
I have to say, someone did, a girlfriend of mine told me to see the movie because of the role of women.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't seen it yet.
I think that's really relevant.
Well, just.
But it's not going to be like.
I don't think this isn't a spoiler, but basically the main character is the woman. Is
Charlize Theron's
character. And she says more words than Mad Max.
Which is like 12.
Does things that, she...
12 or 13 words.
12 or 13 words.
Yeah. The last thing is that the men's rights activists have surfaced again as a result of this movie. And I don't know if it's like 2 guys on the internet. And now it's been blown up as like a thing. But there's some guys out there who are advocating to boycott the movie because it's more feminist propaganda, and it's just not that at all.
That's sad.
Well, like I said, it's completely it's not. You're not getting it over the head.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing even unrealistic about it. You're not like all this superhero or a lot of these movies like it seems like 90% of action movies are just some skinny woman with big tits that kicks everyone's ass just because she knows martial arts somehow. Right. And it's just, you're always just like, just stop. This woman will get crushed by the first dude who punches her. And there's great martial artists, great fighters that are women, but let's be honest, at the top level, that's not a thing. You don't get a woman who can just kick everyone's ass. And in this movie, she uses physical abilities, but she uses her brain and technique and things way more. It's I don't want to call Mad Max realistic, but it's you can swallow it. Like
she gets in physical fights with dudes and gets beat.
Yeah.
But then she can beat them in other ways.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, it's not unrealistic. It's not. I don't see it having any way, shape, or form offending any men out there, because it's not putting men in chains. It's not doing the typical thing of like, oh, well, we've been, oppressed for so long. Now we're going to become the oppressors.
Right.
And it doesn't do that at all.
No.
So, I don't know. If you think your rights are being trampled on because of this movie, you got a lot of bigger problems.
Well, like someone said on the internet that I quoted, you can knock that kind of masculinity over with a feather. If you're that threatened, that's not really masculinity. Right. All right. Dawn, are you ready for Hillary?
Am I ready for Hillary? Oh, well, I am not ready for any of the Republicans, so I'll see.
I can understand that.
I'm ready for Hillary if it's going to be Hillary.
Okay. For some reason, I just assumed that you were a big Hillary supporter.
I'm not a huge Hillary supporter. I think I have to respect her, though.
Yeah, you do. You do have to do that. She's climbed that sticky, slidey political ladder her whole life.
Yeah.
And now she's here and very likely will become the president of the United States. Or do you follow politics much?
No, I do. Yeah, it feels like she's going to be next. It feels like she's going to be next, I think. But
yeah, I think statistically, if you look at the polls, it's pretty much a lock.
It's weird that the Republican Party is so broken, they don't even have an opponent to run against her that's halfway decent. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I made my prediction for the election because I make it every year, like 2 years before, just to show how easy it is to predict these things just by looking at the polls. I'm no genius. I just look at the numbers and I'm like, this guy's going to win. And I've been right like the last 3 times. But she's got like 58% of Democratic support. The next one down is Elizabeth Warren, who isn't running. She has 15%. So the difference between 50-something, almost 60, and 15, that itself is unprecedented lead, even this early. And then below her is Joe Biden with 10%, also not running.
Wow. I don't see Joe Biden.
And then below that is Bernie Sanders with 7%. But I think he's going to surge. I think he'll get pretty damn close to Hillary, but then he'll fall back.
They do have to pick a vice president.
Yeah, running mate.
Yeah, running mate. Thank you.
I don't know if she would pick him, but that would be pretty cool. He would just be sitting in the vice president's house, twiddling his thumbs. He could do whatever vice presidents do.
Well, if she wanted to really seal her winning of it, I think that it should be smart to pick him.
You think?
Because
she'll get the populace.
Because the people that are mostly against her, I mean, I'm talking about the people that actually affect whether she is the other Democrats that don't think she's progressive enough.
Right.
So if she picks someone like, or even Warren, pick Warren or Sanders, either one.
They won't. She won't pick Warren because you can't have two women on the same ticket. It'll throw people off. They're already going to have. Some people are going to.
I don't know.
That's my thing. That's what I think. It would
I
be.
doubt that too.
Yeah, they got it. They always even it out. Like you're saying, they even out their faults with their running mate. So her faults are that she's basically a Republican. So her running mate, she was going to get a liberal.
Right.
On the news this morning, I saw that somebody's floating Julian Castro's name for vice president.
Who's that?
He's a senator in Texas. I guess he's a senator, not a state senator.
I think, a state senator
in Texas. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
The Castro brothers are twins, right?
Who's the other Castro?
I can't remember the other guy's name.
Fidel.
Not Fidel.
Raul.
Not Raul. But yeah,
interesting.
Young Hispanic.
I think Rubio will be the Republican nominees. I just want to get that out there as my prediction. Marco Rubio. Is he a senator from Florida, I think? Anyway, he's Hispanic, so that'll help that'll be nice for the Republicans. They desperately need the Hispanic vote to win. But it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out race to the Republican primary. There's 15 guys and girls in there. It's going to be a mess.
I think Huckabee just killed himself, though. So
what did he do?
Well, I think we're going to get to that in another.
You talking about the whole Duggar thing?
Yeah, the Duggar thing. He came out with support.
Didn't Ted Cruz come out and support him too?
Well,
I don't understand
Ted Cruz?
the Duggar thing.
All right, let's jump into Duggars right now. The ding-dang Duggars.
The Duggars.
I don't watch that show.
No. So this show has been, this is a platform for conservative values, Christian values, that they hammer you over the head with it all the time. This is our family. We're really nice. We're Christian. Got good values. And this Duggar...
That's called 19 and Counting? Is that what
19 Kids and Counting, yeah. They have 19 children.
I've never seen it, so I don't...
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've heard about it.
The mother's just like a breeding machine. They just lay her on a gurney and...
So gross.
That's so twisted.
Yeah.
She's got pumps hooked up to her.
Pumps.
So everybody can eat.
I mean, at 19 kids, can we start looking at, is there something fucking wrong with you? Like...
And to be making money off of it. It's like if they can have another one, it's like, then we'll have 20. We can
you remember
really...
that show, like, 8 is Enough? I mean, is anybody old enough to remember that?
Yeah.
Like, this one should be called Enough is Enough. Like,
Enough is
fucking
19 is enough.
Down, man. Pull out, asshole.
Yeah. No, they...
Fucking jerk, man.
It's a vagina, not a clown car.
Oh.
I don't even know what that means, but it just it made me want to be asexual.
But this guy, the guy who molested his sisters and other girls, he's part of this anti-gay group.
Well, he works for a group called the Family Something Coalition.
Yeah.
And they basically, their main objective is no marriage rights for gays. They're fighting that. That's the main thing.
Yeah. No.
And a bunch of their propaganda is how basically gays are pedophiles in waiting and are just like hanging out and waiting to
if we allow gay marriage, it'll open the door for gay people to prey on, sexually molest young kids, because that's what they do.
Rather than religious people.
Right.
So are they worried about
just molesting kids without any
so
other
it's
thing
the
happening?
competition that they're worried about then. They don't want to have to compete for someplace to put their dirty little dicks.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, eliminate the competition, or the perceived competition anyway.
I guess some people on the left might say that like these rigid religious ideologies are more likely to make you be like sexually deviant because they're repressive. So you repress your urges, right? I don't know if that's true either.
Well, I think, and I don't know what
I'm not one for repressing urges, so
I don't know what the stats are, but I think there's a lot of people that are come out as so anti-gay and anti-gay marriage and anti all this stuff. It eventually comes out that they had some, were trying to hook up with guys on Tinder or or hanging out in a bathroom stall in an airport. Like it seems like a lot of this is like self-hatred stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're gay
they
themselves.
Protest too much.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wrote a book, and it's it's a philosophical thing, and what I would have called it is counterfeit. So that's what the book is about. It's about self-deception, where you see something about yourself that you cannot accept. So you lie to the world. You present the opposite image to the world and to yourself. It's not just being a fake. You also convince yourself that you're the opposite. So, for instance, bullies are the example I like to use. They're people usually that get picked on at home by their parents or in some other way. So they see this insecurity and fear in themselves, and they hate that. They hate that they're like that they're scared and weak. So they present an image of masculinity, confidence, and aggression. And so they beat up little kids and stuff like that. And that's why they hate those weak little kids that they pick on, because those weak little kids remind them of themselves. Mm-hmm. So, and they also they lie to themselves too. They say, I'm a strong person, I'm aggressive. That's the purpose of the bullying, is to almost convince themselves that they're not the way they are. So I agree with you that this repressive thing is probably self-hatred in a lot of cases.
And so this Duggar guy, he's one of the 19 kids?
Yes.
And
one of the older ones.
He was one of the older ones. And he molested his own sisters?
And a couple other girls, I think. It was like 5 girls in total, and he admitted to like groping them and stuff while they were asleep and while they were awake.
And how long have they known about this? This just came out recently?
No,
or?
To the public, yeah. But so he was 14 when it happened, but it continued to happen for like a year or two after that. So up till he was like 16 or whatever. The girls were as young as like 4 and 5. Some of them were like 12 or 13.
Right.
And so the family found out about it, and they knew it was a problem, but they didn't call the police or anything.
Was a TV show already happening?
Yes. Back then, yeah. But it was, so the family didn't make it official. What they did was they talked to their church or whatever, and the church decided
the elders.
Yeah, the elders, that something needed to happen. So they were about to enroll him in like a official program for this kind of thing, and instead, though, they sent him up to a friend who was doing renovations on his house, and they made the kid work on the house for a few months.
Oh man!
So that was his punishment or whatever.
Yeah.
That was his counseling, and then because I think there's something about you're supposed to contact law enforcement, so they contacted their friend in the sheriff's department and told him. But instead of filing charges against the molester,
mm-hmm.
this sheriff's guy gave him, quote unquote, a stern talking to, and the icing on the cake. And so that was the extent of the kid's treatment and counseling. Icing on the cake is that sheriff's deputy. He's in prison for 52 years for child pornography right now.
Yeah. So that's even weird. Even if people think that, like, okay, the kid, he was 14 and blah, 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 what about the parents? How come the parents aren't being, charged with something? Because basically they knew about it. They left the kid in the home to do what he was going to do. And
well, supposedly it stopped.
Nothing.
It stopped. Supposedly it stopped after that whole round of events.
After the stern
talking to.
After he painted.
Well, a stern talking to goes a long way.
Oof, that'll get you.
I'm kind of. I feel like I should
closer to the mic.
I feel like I should say something, because I feel like if there's a kid who's 14 who's a messed up kid like that, and they don't get a chance to, I don't know, be a normal kid somehow, maybe get some help instead of getting thrown into this system, because now you get thrown into the system and you're a sexual offender for your whole entire life, no matter what really happened. But not to say that there's lots of kids that really are predators, but lots of kids aren't.
That's a good point. That
it's just like they don't know what they're doing yet, maybe.
And it's reasonable to
and
take care of it within the family.
To a certain extent,
throw
I
him
think
into
so.
the system.
No, I disagree with that. Like, I completely agree with you about the kid's 14. He might be a natural predator, and that was how he was born.
Well, maybe you can keep him from being a natural predator.
Well, and maybe you can, but I think what needs to happen, though, is you need to have professionals look at that and decide whether it can be evaluate and see if he can be changed and can have.
Yeah, but okay. Let me just counter this because I was a fairly just a fucking fairly horny 14-year-old. I was trying to get a ride everywhere I could, and I was exploring every option I could explore, every opportunity I could explore, and my Lewis and Clark expedition didn't include 4-year-olds. It wasn't anything that ever attracted me. So
about the age. That's pretty messed up.
So I'm thinking that maybe this kid's just fucked up, and that this is the kind of thing that you can't deal with inside the family because there's a pathology going on there that requires professional help.
Well,
at the very least, I mean, you should have gotten him some psychiatric help to hide the whole fucking thing. And to take it to probably a guy who was in the church, I'm assuming the church, friend of the family, because they usually keep that shit in house.
Well, it would.
I think it's pretty reprehensible on every level because again, and I don't want to. I guess I am a feminist because are you valuing your male child more than you're valuing your female children? Because you're like, well, he made a mistake, and fuck it if it cost his sisters a normal life.
That's what they're saying now. And those girls did not receive treatment either.
Those girls
and I'm not cool with that.
Treatment.
And I'm not cool with that.
Yeah. That's the really bad part of this whole thing.
Well, and for me, if it was if the 14-year-old was a woman and the 4-year-old was a male, I'd feel the same way about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not. I wouldn't say I'm
but
valuing the male child or the female child.
But the Christian perspective and stuff does view sexuality in that traditional way, like boys will be boys, but anything a girl does,
the double standard.
Yeah, big double standard. So,
not cool.
But let's be completely relativist for a second and explore this though, because up until like 1978, homosexuality was described in the DSM. The Manual of Psychological Diagnoses, as a pathology. That was well into the 70s. Homosexuality was a deviant pathology. So they got rid of that. Now, I don't want to be like Ted Cruz and everyone and start talking about homosexuality and pedophilia or pederasty in the same sentence. But I'm just saying, if you're born or if you grow up to be attracted to children, how should we view that as a rational culture? I mean, you kind of got to stop it, right? Because
dangerous.
Because it's never good for the kid.
I'm gonna go Spock on you. The good of the many outweighs the good of the few or the one.
Yeah.
So you have to protect everybody else from this one guy who's. I mean, it's the same reason we have prisons. This isn't a new question. It's just a touchy subject.
But what if they control their urges though, and they only ever use like. Well, child pornography is not a good example because that's exploitative too. The making of child pornography hurts children. But I was going to say, like, what if they just look at like cartoon images of kids and masturbate or something, and they never become a pederast?
Man, if you can argue marijuana as a gateway drug, you got to argue cartoon kiddie porn as a gateway to fucking child molestation.
Okay, well,
I can't see that it's.
But this is something that
I'm
actually
uncomfortable
happened.
as shit with accepting this on any level.
In Australia, they banned small breasts pornography. Any women that were in pornography.
See, I feel like they're discriminating against my wife, man. Like, what if we want to make some homemade movies and my wife has little?
But they banned
breasts,
it because
man.
they thought it was fueling child molestation, and it was fueling. So
just discriminating against skinny girls, it's wrong,
right? But I mean, that's
skinny girls should be able to do porn too.
So instead of cartoon images,
Brian's equal rights.
You dress an adult woman up in certain clothes, give her pigtails, and she has small breasts. And like, oh, she's instantly 8. I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah. So
it's a big part of the male fantasy in porn. Is calling them, they're like 25-year-old girls, and they call them teens, or she's 18 or whatever.
But that's play acting. That's role playing. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like,
that
if you want to do that,
acceptable outlet.
Yeah, if you want to do that in your own home, then fine.
Right.
Like,
so
that's
right. But with with pedophiles, which are just people who are attracted to children, pederast being the people who act out on it. With pedophiles, I mean, so how does this apply to them? Because they
Well, I would say,
is there an acceptable outlet for them, or do they have to be institutionalized right from the start and undergo some kind of program like these gay transformation programs? Is there any evidence that anything like that can work? Can you change a person's sexuality?
Yeah,
should they be locked up?
It seems like you
if
should
they've never
just call
committed a
them
crime.
criminals if they're criminals, and then criminals should be punished.
But if they've never committed a crime, but you just know,
then they haven't.
just
They haven't hurt anyone.
Just the ideation.
And there is there are programs like that where people have come out. Kids like in their teens have come out and said, "I'm attracted to 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds," and they go through this program and they try to change them. And I was listening to NPR and they were talking about it and how basically this one kid that had done it, like the flack that he got then from it, like he was even seeking, help.
Yeah.
And just the amount of negative attention he got from the community around him because people, is basically the same kind of thing like when you get the flyer on your door as sexual.
I worked with a
it's
few
so
of them.
taboo that you can't even ask for help.
Yeah,
It's the worst thing, and it's the thing that everybody hates in this culture. So when you go to prison, the prisoners beat the shit out of you.
That's true, but at the same time, it's the one thing that no one really wants to prosecute either. Obama, there's a thing in front of him, Holder and Obama both, Holder's speaking for Obama, would not fund it, and it's basically to fight child abuse and sexual molestation of children, and they won't fund it. They're the same with talking about Huckabee defending Duggar. Well, you also had Clinton give a fucking what's it called when they a pardon to fucking I forget what the millionaire's name was, but he was a child molester. He had been convicted of child molestation. I mean, the girl was like 14 or 15, but still, he had been convicted of child molestation. Was not living in the U.S.
Well, isn't that...
It was Mark something. I can't remember his name.
Is that child molestation or is that statutory rape? Or both?
It depends on the state, I think. But that's the thing, too. You can, talk about... I think there is a large difference between if you do something with a 4-year-old and if you do something with a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a power dynamic that, if you're in your 30s, 40s, even 20s, and you're dealing with a teenager or younger, you have a little bit more stuff going on and control and able to manipulate the situation.
Yeah, but that's very...
Well, that's why it's also not about sex. It's about power.
Right.
And, it's about the abuser feeling like they need something...
rape is
whatever they need.
Rape is about power, is what you're saying.
And actually, you guys just made me think
of
the
mic,
whole.
Eat the mic.
Oh, I don't want to eat the mic. There's I just saw something on the news that said there was hundreds and hundreds of rape kits that never get tested.
Oh yeah.
And talking about respecting women and giving a victim a fair chance. Go
ahead. My bad.
Sorry, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I was going to say. It was appalling to me.
Those unprocessed rape kits. It's a problem in every state and on the federal level.
And if you took care of the rape kits and the women getting raped, maybe some of those guys are child molesters and they would be locked up because they're criminals.
True. There probably is a lot of overlap.
Everyone needs justice in the world.
Well, and I think that's the problem is the underreporting of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Or you find out about it and you brush it under the rug. And I think what needs to happen is professionals who are able to deal with this stuff and know about it and have, been educated and all that, can fucking analyze it and
well, there is a duty to report if a professional comes across information that they feel like...
No, but that's what I'm saying. So the parents, the Duggars, should have reported this to actually professionals.
But the parents don't have a duty to report, though.
They don't have a duty to legally.
Morally,
I think they should. Morally.
Ethically, yeah.
And that's to get like you said, to get everyone help, both the 14-year-old and the 4-year-old.
And I'm just cynical, but I don't think they did any of this for the good of the kids at all. I think it was just to protect their family and their brand.
Yeah, that's another
their Christian
layer.
Family brand where they've made
The
millions
TV show.
and millions off of.
Yeah, that's...
And all these pictures of Josh Duggar with all these Republican presidential candidates. There's 8 of them that he's in pictures with. Jeb, Ted Cruz.
Currently?
Yes, Rand Paul. Well,
how old is this kid now?
He's in his 20s.
Wow.
And almost there's with Ben Carson. He's got pictures with all the Reince Priebus, who's the head of the Republican National Committee, and I was looking at these pictures, and I'm like, how did this kid who's on TLC get access to some of the most powerful men in the world? Like, just because his family is the face of like conservative Christianity, he's like eating lunch with my buddy Jeb. I'm like, how did you eat lunch with Jeb Bush? I mean, this guy is in one of the most powerful families in history, and he's a governor, and all this stuff. And how did this kid like eat lunch with Jeb Bush? It's weird how interconnected this family is with Republican politics.
Well, but that's their politics too. They want to appeal to the masses. They want to appear like they're part of mainstream America.
Oh, the politicians?
And the politicians. And, they believe in Christian conservative values and family and blah, blah, blah. So they go to lunch for half an hour and get a picture taken. And,
right.
Boy, that's taken care of.
Exactly, because millions of white people watch that show.
Right.
So.
and they're not what's it called, vetting whoever they're the people, they don't
guess
really
not.
Shameless self-promotion, man. If I can get a photo op with a
on
guy
both sides,
who gets me 10 votes, then fuck it, I'm in.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership. Let's try to make a trade deal sexy here, people. So Obama this is one of his signature, hopefully for him, achievements. And it's a trade deal like NAFTA was in the 90s. It's a trade deal with a bunch of Latin American countries and some South Pacific countries, Asian countries, where basically when you make a trade deal, there's no tariffs on exports and imports, so it's easier to trade with each other without high taxes and stuff. So he wants to push this through. The scary things about this trade deal are that, one, it's classified. So no Congress people can read it except a select few. When they read it, their staffers and their assistants can't come into the room. They can read it for like an hour and then they have to leave. It's not only classified right now, it's classified for the next 5 years after it gets ratified. So no one knows what's in it exactly, although we do know some other things that are in it that are themselves scary. For example, this trade deal gives corporations the right to sue national governments if the laws of those governments
infringe on their profits.
Infringe on their projected profits. Right. So if they say, well, we're supposed to make $25 billion next year, AT&T or something, and because Italy or some country in the trade deal passed a law against some phones or something that now we only made $20 billion, we can sue Italy. AT&T can sue national governments or can sue the United States for making laws that hurt their profits. So that's another scary thing besides being classified. I think there's some other...
Well, you could argue that a company would be like, our projected profits are this amount of money, but if we have to fix up our fleet of trucks so that they're actually roadworthy according to American laws,
right,
and aren't producing all this pollution
emissions
and blah, 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 then we're going to lose this amount of money. And so we shouldn't have to do that. We should be able to put whatever we want on the highways and suck it, America.
And it's just frightening, like how we've all kind of seen this coming, like corporations rising in power to where they're equal to national governments,
right, and
or more.
Yeah, more.
Because like they're already kind of controlling.
Oh, we're past that, aren't we?
Yeah, lobbying. Right. They're already making the laws, basically.
Yeah.
But Obama's pushing this thing. He says, and almost every Republican voted for it. Well, what he wanted, what they voted for, is fast track authority, which means that once the trade deal comes up for a vote, the senators can't say yes, but change this. They have to say yes or no, up or down, yes or no. So that's what Obama wants, fast track authority.
And let's fast track through the Senate,
right?
Because the Senate they think is going to be an easier vote than the House.
Definitely, the House leans left more,
right.
I think. But so they voted for fast track authority. Almost every Republican voted for it, for Obama, what Obama wanted. And then like a handful of Democrats voted against it. And it made it that fast track authority then failed, so it didn't pass. And Democrats are fighting against Obama now. And Obama is saying he got pissed off, and because Elizabeth Warren is one of the main people opposing this trade deal, he's like, he came out and started bad-mouthing her and saying she's just wrong. She's just wrong. And basically her point is that, yes, these trade deals have protections built in for the consumer, the American workers, and other things that make the scary things not as scary, but they've never been enforced in previous trade deals like NAFTA. So why should we expect them to be enforced now? And Obama's saying, yes, NAFTA was a mistake. Yes, previous trade deals were a mistake, which is kind of a big deal that he's admitting that. But this time we're going to enforce it, and the American workers will benefit from this, and nothing bad's going to happen. And then she fired back and said, there's no precedent for that to be true. He's saying this trade deal is going to help every American worker. It's going to give you more jobs. She's saying it's going to do the opposite. So it's confusing.
Why wouldn't it do the opposite? If you can ship goods into the country with no tax or tariff, what the fuck gives you any incentive to have them made here?
Right.
How is that bringing any jobs back to America?
And the trade
Second
deal,
of all, if like 90% of this is classified, why the fuck would I want it to go through? Why are you hiding it from me if it's just a trade deal? It's not a military secret. It's not supposed to get anybody killed. So why is it secret?
Well, the one thing about jobs in America, what the other side would argue, I would think, would be that it's not just stuff coming into America. It's also in every country that we are involved in that trade with the TPP. Then we could bring stuff into their countries too.
Yeah, but we don't build anything.
And we'd have the same. I know,
yeah, we don't make anything.
But they would say, well, but we could start building stuff then. And
right.
But they won't until there's incentives to build here. I think you should tax the fuck out of goods coming in from other countries.
And incentives to build here means that you're making 35 cents an hour.
Well, yeah, the trade deal also makes it easier for companies to outsource their labor to the countries in the partnership.
Yeah, sure.
So more of the same of little Vietnamese kids making our shit.
Right.
For American, quote, air quotes, companies. They're American companies, but it's foreigners doing all the work.
Right. Yeah, they should. There should be something to give them an incentive to bring those jobs back here.
Right. Well, and probably any of those jobs that would come back here would go to prisons. We'd have prisoners doing those jobs.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
So
we should just roll it all up and burn it the fuck down. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's the attitude, though. That's getting bigger in this country, and it's pretty scary to me. I mean,
the whole world, though. Just roll it up, burn it down, fuck it, oxidize
more scary. I mean, in history, at least, like, you had ideologies in history that ended up being false, but they motivated people, and people had kind of a naive hope in things like religious ideals and political ideals in the Enlightenment, the Founding Fathers. That was an unprecedented move towards let's form governments in a smart way, finally. Let's get rid of the kings. But now everyone's tired and cynical, and every movie is a post-apocalyptic world where every skyscraper has fallen, the economy's shit, and we're just scraping for bugs to eat. And that's what we see in the future. That is very disheartening. Where are the leaders and everybody's just cynical. Anyone who comes out and like, even when I get out there and start promoting Bernie Sanders, like, this guy might be an honest politician. Like, he's never shifted from his ideals. All of his donations come from unions, all of them. No banks, no Wall Street interests, no corporations. And I'm like, wow, this guy's for real. And then people are like, come on, he's a politician, And I understand that, but this cynicism it's scary, man.
Hope is almost dead.
Yeah.
Just a couple more kicks and it'll be over.
Yeah, but then it'll start up from the ashes again, I guess.
Rise like a phoenix.
What's next, people?
But that's even hope right there. Hope that it is going to get just so fucked up that fuck it all and burn it down and it'll be gone. That's
that's just me.
Fatalist hope.
That's just me. Like, you climb over one obstacle and you're like, awesome, and then you look and there's just another one
or 50 more.
Yeah. Well, you can't even see the next one. Like, you get that second of good feeling when you get something resolved. You're like, oh man, we really did something. Oh yeah. No,
doesn't really scrape the surface.
You just barely got over, and you're like, "Oh yeah, we did." But wait, you're stepping on my dick. Like, it's not going to work out, man. We're fucked.
It's a dangerous.
Eat, drink, and be merry, man. Fuck it.
Man, it's a dangerous I don't know if it's dangerous. It's a turning away from life. I mean, it's a shutting down. It's the whole human race saying no.
I'm not giving up. That's just my election prediction, man.
That something bad's gonna happen.
No, I mean, something bad is happening.
Yeah.
It is happening, man. We got presidential candidates like, it's okay to fondle 4-year-old girls if it was just a mistake. Like what, you tripped and fell and grabbed her little boob? I mean, that's a mistake.
He was just 14. He didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't know. It's cool,
But making him a celebrity is another level of bizarreness.
You mean more than he already was from being on the show?
Yeah, instead of maybe avoiding that kid and like letting him like get like push him out of the spotlight, don't give him this like negative publicity. They're like,
yeah, but they're invested in him now.
Him?
Yeah, well, like you ate lunch with him. He's on your Facebook page. Like now you gotta you gotta ride it to the end, man. It's like it's the Republican version of Hunter S. Thompson. Like you bought the ticket, man. Take the ride.
Well, they're rallying behind him because liberals are so gleeful over this incident. The
things that bring us joy, man. We're like, this guy fucked it up good.
Yeah, he's a Christian. He's a family values. He's anti-gay. Well, look at what he is. And I got to say, there's some satisfaction there. But
and that's what I was trying to point out was like it's not a political thing. Like he happens to be in the show that's supporting conservative Christian values, and most of the people that ate lunch with him were Republicans. But you look at Clinton; he gave that dude a pardon. Like it goes across both political parties.
Oh yeah,
it's not a Republican Democrat issue.
Well, yeah, if they had been liberals,
most politicians do not really care about kids. They don't care. Like they'll say whatever happens in the home,
they don't make it.
is up to the people, the parents, and like they're not trying to save or protect any. And that for me is the main issue, is because when you fucking abuse kids or molest kids or whatever, they grow up to fucking do the same. Mm-hmm. And it's been proven that most stuff, crime, murders, rapes, blah blah blah, whatever, it usually stems from something that happened in somebody's childhood.
Yeah, often. Yeah, it's also though you don't want to spread the misinformation that if you were abused, that you're going to be a psycho.
No, I'm not saying that if you were abused, you're going to be, because you still have a choice.
Yeah.
But
there's a higher chance.
Yeah. And if you just try to thwart that, like people try to close down liquor shops or gun stores all the time to try to thwart, crime or any bad things, why don't you just try to stop the molestation and child abuse?
Yeah, that's a tough thing to even start out to do, but
it's no tougher than trying to outlaw guns.
Well, it's trying to outlaw drugs. Because those things are legal things on the market. You can make laws, but in a household, there's always going to be families that are in their house privately alone. You can't put cameras in there and monitor families. Like I agree that ending child abuse would be the greatest thing humanity's ever done, but I don't know how you even begin. I think maybe you begin as a liberal. I'm saying this by taking the stigma away from sex and making it less titillating in the way that it is, in the way that
making it less taboo,
especially, and stop trying to monetize it and everything, where it's like this naughty thing where companies can use it to sell hamburgers because it's a naughty thing. Like if it wasn't naughty, like if women could go around with their tops off and everything and it wasn't a big deal, that whole selling sex culture would probably start to fall away, which by the way is kind of a liberal thing. It's the fault of the liberalization of society that there is sex everywhere and being sold and it being monetized.
But you don't think people would fetishize, like if women could go around with their tops off, then all of a sudden the hamburger commercials would have women in these evening gowns, like in elaborate hairdos and whatever, to like try to because that was what guys are into now. Oh, tits, whatever. We can see.
No, they just go to violence. It would be like hot chicks slaughtering cows.
Yeah,
that's what it would be next.
It would be. I don't think it would be that. It would get weird.
Naked girls covered in blood.
Yeah,
eating raw steak.
Like the Deftones.
Kind of turning me on.
Butcher video.
So Don, talk to us about your life. You had cancer. You went through that. once, twice? What did it come back?
Yeah, I am a breast cancer survivor, and it all started in 2008. I went and got my first mammogram, and it was bad right away. So I got all these tests.
Was it just a surprise at the office? Like
it was a total surprise. Yeah,
you just get a little. So
definitely a surprise.
I don't want to I don't want to pry or anything. So just tell me to shut up. But that moment though in the office though, like when the doctor tells you that, can you describe that feeling? Is it just like anxiety or what happens?
Well,
there?
it's just it's just sort of so unbelievable that you can't even process it at first, I guess.
Yeah.
Just you can't. And plus, when I went and got my first mammogram, and they were like, "You have sprinkles," and I was like, "Sprinkles? They sound so harmless." And,
yeah.
And actually, they're calcification deposits that show up on the X-ray and blah blah.
I know that doesn't sound bad. You're like, sprinkles are for winners. Like
sprinkles are for winners.
Yes,
exactly.
Sprinkles are for winners. I'm
so
good.
I didn't really understand. I kept going back for more testing, and I was like, oh, I guess everyone does this. And I didn't really. I guess I was in total denial.
Do you think the doctors could have been more forthright about it, or
no? Because I just wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready. I couldn't process it.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, I mean, it was your first mammogram, right? So you had no information about what the normal process of a mammogram would be.
Exactly.
I
had never gone through it and been like, oh, okay, everything's fine.
Right.
And I didn't realize that if they call you back, every week for like 3 or 4 weeks, that you're really in trouble. And then to answer your question, it did come back. Came back. Was it last year? Yeah, last year. It seems like a blur. So last year I had to do chemo and radiation.
Was it the second time you went through? Did you do that the first time as well?
The first time it was all just surgery.
Okay.
Double mastectomy. And then the second time it was in my lymph nodes, and I was getting lumps in the lymph nodes were just so the second time I knew what was happening immediately, and the second time I could tell, like, you don't realize how much the doctors are telling you by their facial expression and their body language. And so the next time I saw right away, like, it is bad, and I do have it, but it has come back. And before, they actually told me officially.
Yeah. I mean, you look perfectly 100% healthy right now. Is what's going on now?
Thanks. Well, right now, I'm done with everything, and I take tamoxifen.
Okay. Is that a radiation?
It's a medication.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a medication that blocks estrogen because my cancer was estrogen receptor positive. So it actually was a useful tool because I can take a pill now, and it blocks the estrogen, and it's supposed to keep the cancer from,
thriving,
right?
So it's in hibernation right now?
I think the word is metastasize, right?
It already, it metastasized last year.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess I don't know if they call it remission after it. I don't know what I am, but I'm on a watch list. I see a doctor like every 3 months now.
Wasn't it like the last time they were going to check you too? There's like a...
Yeah, I had made it through the 5-year window. Like, they kind of tell you... Okay, first of all, I had this thing called DCIS, and it's ductal carcinoma in situ, or in situ.
Yeah.
And they don't even consider that a cancer. They consider it a pre-cancer, and that's what I had back in 2008. And then when it came back, it was just full-blown cancer. So it was such a drastic. It was so much worse the second time because you just you don't have.
You made it all that way.
I had the pre-cancer, and they caught it, and I did everything I was supposed to do, and then you kind of watch it for 5 years, and if you make it past the 5-year point, they kind of consider you that you're safe. It's probably not going to recur, and so I had my 5-year point, and then it came back like a couple months later.
Now that you've through all these years, you've battled a threatening illness. Has anything changed, positive or negative, in your attitude? I don't know, philosophical view of life or your treatment, the way you conduct your daily routine. Has anything changed?
I guess a lot of things have changed, and it's hard to even say like everything, but I guess the biggest thing is that I guess I don't feel I don't know if that's the right word, afraid. My whole fear level has totally changed. Like things that make me afraid are way different than they might have been before. Like I probably would have I probably never would have come and spoken on like some recorded show before.
Yeah.
And I feel really weird, but but yeah, I mean, I'm here. I'm living on borrowed time, so I feel like I have to do what I have to do and make the most of my life, and I don't, I don't feel like I need to like plan for the future. I'm living more for now, I guess.
Is that like a positive thing? Does that feel
That's
good?
That's a positive thing.
Yeah. It's like they always say, try to live in the present. And you're kind of doing that.
Right.
That's pretty good.
And don't waste time with stuff you don't want to do.
Don't waste time. It's a big thing. I really don't want to waste time with anything that like drains my energy.
Are you working right now?
I am. Yeah, I'm back to work full time.
Where do you work? What do you do?
I work at Ep12 Gallery, and we are an art gallery that specializes in photography, and I'm the registrar. So I'm like the inventory person, and I
deal
do
with
a
the
lot
money
of tech
and
stuff.
Okay.
Not really all the office work and all the tracking of the photographs, like they go in and out all the time of the gallery. And
did you say it was Etherton?
Yeah.
In Tucson?
Yes.
Okay, so check it out, people.
Right down on 6th. Cool spot.
Do you get into the art aspect of it?
Definitely.
Really?
Yeah, actually that's like one of the best things about being here in my life right now. I love my job. I don't always love what happens every day,
right.
But I do love my job.
That is one of the best things in the world if you can find. I mean, I know it's obvious. It's a cliche.
It's a huge thing.
But to find a job you like, God, that's such a blessing.
What about your own stuff? Are you painting again?
I still haven't started painting yet, but I went to art school back in the day, so
we have
someday I'll paint again.
Oh,
we have a few of Dawne's paintings.
Nice.
I think 3 at least. We have like 3 of yours.
I think you have 2, maybe 3.
Chris
has one tucked away.
The one of the lady.
Yeah,
it's really kind of sad.
It's kind of dark.
Yeah, it is.
Dark gold collage.
And then we have the negative of the trees, and then that real big one.
Yeah.
I've been offered a lot of money for that big painting.
I know. I should start cranking them out.
I still got that guy on my list, man. You cranked another one of those out, he'd give me a lot of money for it. I'll be your agent.
What do you think?
I'm bad at cranking out things.
What do you think about Angelina Jolie? The fact that she had so she didn't have cancer, but she did a genetic test which said she was 81% likely to develop breast cancer because of her family history. So she had both of her breasts removed preemptively. And now she had her ovaries removed also. Recently. So now a lot of press, I don't know if it's feminists or just women in the press, but they really love that. They think she's great. And to me, I don't know enough about it to form an opinion, but to me, I was kind of wondering if maybe she's a little bit crazy because she's a celebrity, and this is kind of one of those crazy things that celebrities do. I don't
really think that.
You don't think that? You think it's a can what she did?
I think it sounds uber rational.
It is rational.
If you can get a genetic test that tells you that you might have a large chance of getting a certain kind of cancer, and I'm assuming it's in her family history also.
It is.
And so I'm assuming she made a rational decision, right? I don't think... And then taking the ovaries out, that takes away a lot of the hormone issue. So that's the reason for the ovaries. And then you can get... those people that have the BRCA gene can get ovarian cancer. They have a high percentage of... So it's not even just breast cancer.
Right.
So yeah, it's scary if you could
If you can stop
If you can stop it, you should be able to.
It's such a tough call, though.
Get the help. It is a tough call.
To undergo major surgery, for something that you
As
don't
an
have.
elective.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I don't think it should even be talked about. I mean, I guess I could see how since she's a celebrity and maybe you want other people to hear her story and see how she's similar to them or whatever.
Well,
but
yeah.
I don't think the media should be talking about it like,
well, how
much
much
have done
how
it?
much are those
Shouldn't she have
tests?
done it?
Do you know?
I mean, it's
no
her
one's
body.
doing
She
it.
can do what she
Expensive.
wants.
Yeah.
They are
yeah,
expensive.
they are. Well, they used to be really expensive,
The
and I
test?
think they've
Yeah.
come down more.
Because I think I disagree. I think it is something the media should be talking about because you have people like my wife who just don't go to the fucking doctor and
Yeah.
go get checked. Like
No,
go get your exams.
Right.
Like
But I
promote
misspoke.
that.
I didn't mean don't talk about breast cancer or don't talk.
You mean
about,
like don't
or
opine? Like don't have an opinion?
Yeah,
on
don't
her
be
thing.
like, should she have
Yeah.
done that?
Yeah.
But
Is she
everyone has
crazy
an
to do
opinion.
that?
Okay,
Is she-
I get you now.
It's no
All
one's
right.
damn business,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, I think it's smart, man. Like, and
Well,
encourage girls to go get checked, man.
I think she publicly made it. She publicly stated what was happening to her in order to remove the taboo. Like that
Yeah.
she's using her celebrity status to talk about a serious issue.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's kind of extremely brave considering that she's made a lot of her career was based on her physical looks and everything, and so she's just like, screw the movie bit.
It's
And she
weird
still
and-
makes great, or not great, but she makes movies still, so she's fine.
It's weird to think of like, there's all this identity with the a woman's breasts and
Yeah.
there's so much baggage linked to that you have to go through all that stuff when it happens to you, and then like whether you want to or not, you kind of are forced to. But what was I going to say? I don't even know.
the sexuality linked to that, or
Stigma.
maybe that wasn't
of
the
it,
word you
but,
used.
Yeah. No, well, you make a good
I
point.
was going to say that the fact that you can just cut them off and still be alive and they're actually expendable is...
Yeah. They
like
don't,
if you
they
had
don't
lung
do-
cancer,
yeah.
you can't just cut your lungs off.
Right.
So weirdly,
Yeah.
it prolongs your life. So
Right, but I think men would have the same issue with like their dick. If you got dick cancer and you could cut it off and be rid of it,
Prostate
then
Yeah, but that's
well,
that's
but
a little
that's
different.
inside your body.
That's a little different because that's your whole sexual, your feeling, your physical sensation of sex.
But you could still have sex.
Without a dick?
Yeah.
well, doesn't
Like
the
taking
prostate
Cunnilingus
control your
and,
hormones?
you know.
No, that's not sex. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't
that's you
have
giving
the
your-
old kind of sex. The
And-
kind
and-
I grew up on, goddammit. In and out.
And yeah, maybe you get a prostate massage. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's other stuff to get to
Hi, mom.
Yeah. Hi, Mom.
The
Hi,
old-
Mom.
The
But
talking
no,
the
but
old in and
I'm
out.
just saying the idea that society has, like of women and their breasts, is sort of equal to men and their dicks.
Similar, similar in some ways.
It is
And like-
kind of. It's weirdly parallel.
And like I know a
size
lot of
issue.
men, if it was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even know if there is penis cancer. There probably
Yeah.
is.
Well,
somehow.
There's everything.
test-
cancer.
Well, there's
testicular.
like skin cancer and testicular cancer, yeah. But like, so if they're like, hey, you have an 81% chance of having testicular cancer, or we could just remove your balls now. There'd probably be a lot of men that would be like, nah, I'm gonna
Well,
keep my balls.
I'm really
I want to
bad.
die of cancer as soon as possible.
No, I'm gonna
really-
push my luck though.
I'm really ignorant about physiology, though. Can you still have like an orgasm without balls?
Yeah,
You can't. You don't have.
Yeah, you're just
semen.
not gonna. Yeah,
not gonna have semen.
It's gonna be a dry run.
Well, that's
also,
the best thing in the world. Take them now.
That's news to me.
Well, also when you remove your testicles, you remove a big supplier of testosterone.
Yeah.
Same way with like she
Mm-hmm.
was talking about estrogen.
So it changes your hormones.
it changes different things, hormones and
I'd lose my giant guns.
maybe if you kept working out, maybe not.
I don't know, man. Your levels of T have a huge amount to do with your ability to build muscle and stuff, and your just desire to go to the gym.
No,
at
right?
all.
Yeah.
Think how sexy your long legs could be though if
If I just basically go full female,
and smooth them out.
Yeah.
They're long, dude. I might date you.
the knees are too knobby.
Oh, you don't have
They
to
are.
go.
That's true. They're like burger buddies.
You don't have to go full.
They look
female.
like if you put them in a box and put a bun on top of them, they look like burger buddies.
Looking at them now. Poor guys.
Well, and you wouldn't have to go full female and just be
I took one of those in the teeth
removing
once.
your testicles.
Yeah.
Turn your ball sack into a coin purse.
There you go. Yeah, that's man.
That brings back off track.
That brings back traumatic images because they at the the Santee massacre, the white fellas did that to the Indians. They used their nutsacks as coin purses. Yeah, but that's not even the worst of it.
Why?
That's pretty
Why
cool.
That's not even the worst of it. Vaginas got stretched across hats. Like there was so much mutilation there. I digress. We did that last show 2 shows ago.
Let's Waco, Texas. There was a deadly shootout between some motorcycle gangs and some police. There were the Banditos, the Cossacks, the other ones.
It was basically every club. It was a coalition of clubs meeting. But they happened bi-monthly.
Oh, so one of those is an affiliate of the Hells Angels, you were telling me?
Well, not really, man. The Cossacks, though, they weren't invited to that little thing.
How could a giant biker rally not have Hells Angels representatives?
Because Hells Angels aren't in Texas.
At all?
No. It's Banditos country.
Crazy. That's a big piece of the country. Yeah.
So here's another interesting fact about that. There was a shoot. It initially got reported as a shootout between biker gangs, right? So you got 1 dead Bandito and 8 dead Cossacks. So unless that Bandito was Chris Kyle,
right?
That's a pretty fucking heavy kill to death ratio. I think what you're going to find out here is that the police did all, if not most, of the shooting.
Well, but were there like...
it could have been an ambush by the other gang.
Were there like 300 Banditos and 10 Cossacks?
Here's the thing. Everything happened outside. It was
like a parking lot.
There was a shot, and then there was a bunch of shots, and then it was all over. So all this outrage about why weren't these guys immediately detained? Well, because the majority of them were inside, and they were completely uninvolved in the actual incident. The incident took place outside. These coalition of clubs meetings, from what I understand, and I'm not out in my source, but I know a dude who's in the life, so they happen like twice a month, and this shit never happens. The Cossacks have been flexing in Texas for control of the I-35 corridor from Laredo up to Kansas, where it's a big smuggling route. This is all about money and for who gets to work for Los Zetas and smuggle their shit and then bring their money back. That's what this is about. The Cossacks have been flexing on the Banditos. The Banditos, I guess, have been trying to improve their image, which kind of sounds funny. The baddest of the bad trying to improve their image.
Well, the Hells Angels successfully did that in the last
they're worth
30 years.
They're worth like $80 million as a corporation.
Oh my God.
So they didn't even arrest these guys on criminal charges because it comes down, like a lot of these clubs are veteran clubs, and like
motorcycle gangs started in the late 40s with World War II veterans that were coming home, and they were restless, pilots. They were a little bit wacky, and they just didn't want to live the day-to-day 50s picket fence life, so they hopped on motorcycles and they started Hells Angels is another gang.
So then you got to take it a step further too. They talk about, well, why weren't you calling these guys thugs? Well, 1% of bikers, and they're very proud of this, it's 1% of the outlaw bikers. Most of them are bike clubs. Like what you're not going to hear, they're called like the Shining Riders or something. My buddy said they go to all these events. They're there blessing bikes. You're not going to hear anybody reporting on that or wondering why those guys aren't getting called thugs.
Well, but
in the scenario I presented to you,
but why weren't the question is
the Cossacks weren't invited because they moved into Dallas and they've been flexing on the Banditos. Like a Bandito got busted up, one got stabbed, and there's been no retaliation.
Right,
now, what started it was that when the Cossacks got there, they put what's called a Texas rocker patch, which means they're claiming Texas. But the Banditos own Texas, so they're not cool with that. So they were approached a few times, and the word that my buddy said is they were approached civilly, which means they got their ass kicked and they got it ripped off their jacket.
But you're at the same time you're admitting that these gangs, some of them are involved in drug smuggling and violence and things like that.
Sure, that's the 1%.
Right. So, I mean, that's a term they use. It doesn't mean there's only 1% of them.
Well, if you think about the amount of people that are in patched clubs, and then there's only 5 outlaw clubs in the country. I mean, you just watch Gangland and see it. The Banditos themselves in the country, they only have about 1,100 to 1,300 members or something like that. So if you think about that's a small percentage.
Well, and it's
super
the same
small percentage.
And it's the same as people in Baltimore and Ferguson. If you were to say every single person that you saw out in the street, they were a Blood or a Crip.
Yeah, it's not true.
Okay, fine, but without splitting hairs, the whole and Mark, I think you're with Brian on this because you both had a problem with the sort of liberal presentation of this incident, which said, here we have a shootout that was far more violent than anything we've seen in black gangs in 30 years. There's never been 9 people killed in a shootout, or people shooting at the cops. Black gangs never shoot at the cops. Maybe one guy will get cornered and take a shot, but they never fire at the police, which supposedly happened in this incident. So this is very
like Harrietsburg or something. Who was that? Wasn't that
what
what about the cops that are getting ambushed right now? Like who are they attributing those crimes to?
Yeah, I don't think it was as much black gangs. You didn't see that level of violence from black gangs as much as you didn't see that level of violence in these riots and protests that happened recently.
You didn't see 9 people get killed, but my point is when this comes out, I think you're gonna find out that the police killed most of those people.
Perhaps that'll be very interesting.
So then it's probably not a shootout between biker gangs. But because if it was, don't you think more banditos would have got it?
I'm not necessarily. So maybe
8-1.
There were 100 guns found at the scene, by the way, which is crazy too. You never find that in a black gang situation. Well, but the liberal side is this is being treated differently in the news than black crime would be. If there were 300 black dudes in various gangs, and some of them that have no history of crime, and some of them do, and they all conglomerated at a restaurant, and outside they got into a giant shootout, and you just see a sea of black males, and there's a shootout with police, and 9 people are dead. The liberal idea is this would be a national freakout.
Okay.
And instead, biker gangs are viewed as a curiosity. They're kind of viewed in a romantic way in this country, which you seem to be saying they're not being they're being demonized more than they should be. But the liberal view is they're viewed as a curious. It's like, oh, that's weird biker gang. It's like that's kind of cool. But if it was a black thing, it would have been panic. Do you agree?
No, I'm not. Well, I'm not agreeing with you on what you're saying. My assessment is because I'm not defending these guys one bit. But I'm saying a lot of if you're saying why aren't all these guys referred to as thugs? Because really, statistically, only about 1% of bikers get involved in outlaw shit.
But those bikers.
Okay, those bikers.
Why aren't they being called thugs?
Well, you can call them whatever you want.
Right.
But they're not really thugs because they're like a thug has a disorganized connotation to it. These guys are very organized. These are organized groups. You have very intelligent people at the top echelon of these motorcycle clubs.
But that should be more scary.
Okay,
right?
It is more scary. Yeah. But I'm saying that's not how it's being reported. And second of all, what's the liberal take going to be if they find out that the cops killed everybody, that no biker ever fired a shot, that it wasn't a quote-unquote shootout between bikers, which it doesn't sound like from looking at it.
Liberals will love that.
Yeah, they will love it because, So
no,
they
they'll
will
hate
either
it
way.
Because then that's police violence against white people, right?
That's what I mean. They'll love that they get to now demonize the police. Against white people, you're saying?
Yeah, because that's what they're claiming is all the bikers are white.
But
and they love to say right now, oh no, white people are annoyed. White people don't ever have any problems from police. Right. White people, they just drive around and no police has ever killed or assaulted a white person. Yeah. Nobody that's white has ever had any negative dealings with the cops.
But thug it would be a misnomer on this because it's not what they are. The lower echelon guys are, but they have enough respect for the higher guys and enough fear that they don't step out of line. And if they do, they deal with that shit. But if you think about biker gang violence, it really is very rare. They usually deal with that shit on a lonely road by themselves, and the guy who disappears, don't nobody miss him.
But here's my question for you, though. Do you think if this incident had been the same number of people, the same number of organizations, and the same number of shots fired, guns found, and deaths, if they were black, do you think it would have been in the national consciousness, if that is meaningful enough to say, been treated differently? Would people have been scared of black people? Don't you think that's a thing in white America?
Well, it may be, but I'll tell you what else would have happened. There would have been a lot more skepticism regarding what the police did right away.
That's a good point.
There would have been a ton more right away.
Yep.
So that's my contention, and I don't want to. I feel like when we start asking those questions, we're like getting into the race game. And my point is that it's being misreported. I'm almost positive it's being misreported. Those guys haven't fired a shot in Texas in 20 years. The Banditos haven't. Why do they want to fucking destroy it all in one day? They don't. They try to avoid violence at these things.
Well, I just think people would think that you're explaining the rationale behind these people, which you should. You're giving context. You're educating the listeners on what it means.
What I think people don't know is that the police were there beforehand. They didn't respond to a shooting. There were a bunch of police already there because they knew there was trouble with the Cossacks.
They're totally not saying that. I mean, they're saying that the police arrived and then the bikers started shooting at them.
Dude, like I said, I'm not outing him, but I got a guy who's down there. He's in that life.
I'm sure we're not hearing the truth.
Yeah, you're not hearing the truth. When it started, they heard a shot. Two guys look at each other inside. This is the eyewitness story that I got. Two guys hear a shot. They're veterans. The reason you find so many guns, everybody in my buddy's club, if you could not get a concealed weapon permit, you couldn't ride with them. Because if they're riding in a group, because of RICO laws, say the four of us are riding in a group and Dawn's a real badass and she's got some felonies, so she can't get a concealed permit. But she's fucking carrying anyway. And we're all carrying. And we're riding together doing 85, 90. Cop pulls us over. It's cool. They check John's permit. We're solid. They check my permit. We're solid. They check Beef's permit. We're solid. They check Dawn's. She's fucking busted. But because we're all wearing the same patch, we all go on a felony. So why aren't they calling them criminals? Because if you can pass a background check and get a concealed weapon permit, chances are you're not a criminal, or you're not one that's been caught, so we can't really label you that. And most of those guys are permit holding concealed weapon carriers because they're not outlaw bikers.
Like, why is everyone making a big deal about everyone having guns in Texas?
Yeah, it's fucking Texas. Everybody has guns in Texas.
Right. Worse than
like
Arizona.
You buy a new car at some places in Texas and they give you a fucking rifle with it.
It is a little bit scary though that there were 100 firearms in one place. I mean, that's kind of.
Have you been to a gun show with me? There's like a fucking 1,000 firearms in one place.
Yeah, but it's, they're not loaded. They're not being, but.
That was the most calm and orderly arrest scene I've ever seen.
That's what people are
TV.
saying. That the police treat it differently.
Well, most of the guys weren't involved in the shooting. They were inside the building.
Yeah, but the guys they arrested presumably were at least in the general outside in the general vicinity.
Have you seen the crime scene, though? The footage I've seen, like, dudes are on their bikes, which are kind of peeled away. It looked like they were trying to leave.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if we'll ever know what happened. And tell everybody what that sheriff said.
Well, the sheriff down there said, we're going to be totally transparent. We'll let you know if we shot 4 of them or if we shot all of them. And I'm pretty much thinking, I told you my scenario. I've been reading all this stuff about accidental discharges and people putting their finger on the trigger in tense situations, even though they're trained not to. And you think about this, they're there, they're waiting for trouble. So here come the Cossacks, and they're like, oh shit, self-fulfilling prophecy, here it comes, We're all jacked up.
Yeah. Some guy reaches
So
some guy reaches into his saddlebag,
right? Pulls out so that they got guns drawn on these dudes who may or may not have started fist fighting, but tensions are getting high and they're expecting something. So then you're over there waving guns, you're talking, get on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. You got an accidental discharge, and all of a sudden, boom, everybody shoots.
Yeah.
And now it's fucking done. You can't take it back. And now you got 9 guys laying dead. And you got the liberal media jumping all over it. Oh, why weren't they called thugs? Why aren't they called this? And yeah, there's probably some bad guys, but there were about 270 people there or something like that. And there's only 400 banditos in Texas. They only have 400 registered members. They have a fucking website, man. You can go check it out.
But you're sort of giving the context of this to make it to show what it is. And people are saying that in Baltimore and Ferguson there were no white people out there giving that context and saying, I mean, there were, but they were saying most of these people are protesters.
Right, misreporting.
Most of these people are peaceful protesters,
And that I didn't see much coverage on that. All I saw was rioters. And then I read, oh, look, there's
at the same time,
there's
huge groups.
A 10 or 15,000 person peaceful protest going on here, and I didn't hear a word about it.
Every one of those black guys and girls are thinking, God damn it, stop throwing bricks through windows.
I know you're not
fucking this up. But here's a good point, though, that Dan Carlin, the great podcaster, brought up. If you organize a massive protest in your city against some policy or something, you get 20,000 people and you march on the streets. You might get the news will show up. You might get a story on the 6 o'clock news.
Or break a couple windows.
Might get a story, and then the next day it's over. They might do a follow up piece, but basically you get very little exposure. You break a couple windows, you turn over a couple cars, and all of a sudden your issue becomes visible in the national spotlight. And that was a really good point. And I think that's why Martin Luther King, who was totally against rioting, kind of defended. He was at the scene of a riot, and he said,
"Rioting is the voice of people who can't be heard."
Yeah, he said rioting is the voice of the unheard.
Yeah,
but he's saying, "No, don't riot. But I kind of get it because then you get national exposure for your issue that otherwise is being ignored by all of us. We all ignored your issue, living in Baltimore, whatever that's like.
Right. So if I can just clarify, all I'm saying is by the radical agnostic approach, I'm not saying that we're dealing with all good guys here, but I'm saying let's not do the same thing that we've been guilty of before. Let's just get accurate reporting on all counts. Let's get accurate reporting on Ferguson. Let's get accurate reporting on Baltimore, and let's get accurate reporting on Waco, because they're all seriously different situations. So let's look at them individually. You can't just throw a blanket on everything and be like, "Oh, these are bad white guys." So it's not, but because it's not that cut and fucking dry.
Right.
Just like it wasn't that cut and fucking dry with Freddie Gray. People were like, "Oh, he's a criminal." No, he's got a bunch of marijuana charges. Like that shit's going to end soon anyway, and you're not going to be able to charge anybody for it. So looking back, isn't it going to be even more fucking senseless that this guy who was supposedly a thug because he was a lifelong pothead, I mean,
it would just be like if some guy got busted for alcohol 10 different times during Prohibition and then ended up getting killed by the police. Everyone called him a thug, and now we look back and we're like, no, he just liked to drink.
And then they ended
like
Prohibition the next week.
The next week, right.
And for me, it's just the media. The media that's sensationalizing everything on both sides.
Yep.
The media is sensationalizing Baltimore and Ferguson.
If it
Media
bleeds,
is sensationalizing Waco. And then conservatives, love to jump on the Baltimore and Ferguson stuff and go, "Oh, yeah, see, they're thugs." And then liberals
they also
want to jump on Waco and go, "See, they're thugs. They're white. They're thugs."
And some of them were, I'm sure.
That's all I heard. I didn't even hear a normal news broadcast about Waco. All I saw was, this happened, and how come they're not being called thugs? How come the cops didn't arrest everybody there? How come the cops didn't blah, blah, blah? So I'm like, well, I'm looking at all the pictures of the people arrested. I could pick out at least 10 people that I wouldn't say was white.
Oh, they're not.
Right.
The Banditos have a huge Hispanic
and they didn't have
base.
white names.
No, they're not completely Hispanic, but they have a huge Hispanic base.
It was the vast majority of the people there
were
were
white.
But you're right. There's a racial mix. There were black dudes there.
So the
look at the
media is trying to
demographics of
make it a
Central
racial
Texas.
thing. The media that loves to tell you racism is bad and we don't want racism anymore also loves to differentiate and say, look, these are white over here, black over here.
But
they're the ones who love to point out race all the time.
Lament it, promote it.
But if you're fighting racism against a certain group, you can't always just be the blindfolded justice with the scales. You can't never talk about race, right?
I didn't say that.
But so that's the liberal mindset here, is that we got to talk about the way this event was handled differently, so that we can bring attention to a systemic problem.
But it's the same liberal media.
Very different situation.
Right.
It very. I mean, like on the one hand, you're comparing people who are protesting and have a right to protest and have a right to go out in the street if they didn't like something that happened in their town and demand accountability, and you call them thugs, and then you have a bunch of people who maybe, I don't know what happened with the whole fight.
But who called them thugs? The only people I heard calling any black protesters thugs was the media. No, it was the media.
No,
the only thing that
you're wrong. It was the mayor of Baltimore.
And the mayor and police chiefs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. But it was through the media, and the media would have headlines, something about thugs and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what this. We need to call them. We need to not call them thugs, and we need to call them thugs.
Right.
And
it doesn't matter.
Just stupid. It's the media playing everybody.
Okay.
And sensationalizing stuff and being like,
and plus you got to
and then you fall into it. Like I said, conservatives loved. Oh well, no, we should call them thugs and those black people because they burn down their own places and blah blah, and they're terrible people and they smoke marijuana. It's like, and then the liberals are, no, we should call them thugs, those white people, because they have SS bolt tattoos and they're skinheads.
Right. Yeah. A bunch of people calling them all skinheads, which is ridiculous. This just shows how sheltered you are. You've never met a biker. They're 98% of them.
Or skinhead, right.
Yeah. And then also in hypocritical Josh Duggar land news, you had Bill O'Reilly, who constantly calls for black accountability in black families. And he's like, look, this isn't a problem that's going to be solved by welfare or the government. You black families need to step up and raise your kids right. Well, his daughter just testified in court that Bill dragged their mother down the stairs by their neck, and he has now lost custody of his two kids. So another family values guy.
Lovely.
Yeah. Great job, Bill.
Bites the dust.
Bill O'Reilly makes... do you guys guess how much he makes per year?
I don't want to get sick, man.
Billions and trillions.
Well, the thing that I always...
He makes $50 million a year.
God, I was going to say 15.
50.
50
He's
million?
one of the top 5 paid entertainers in the world.
See,
Howard Stern,
capitalist
only like
society,
Howard Stern and Oprah make more than
negative
him.
attention is really profitable.
Yeah, he's made his bank
Well,
off
the thing that's hilarious to me is nobody remembers him when he was on Inside Edition.
No.
Really?
I was probably a child.
Yeah, that was before my time too.
And I just
Inside Edition was like Jerry Springer before Jerry Springer.
Yeah, I remember what it was. I just don't remember him.
I thought that was Phil Donahue.
I'd like to see
it wasn't
him
a
and
talk
Morton
show. It was more
Downey
like 60
Jr.
minutes,
fight. Like I just want
Okay.
segments, but
All those Fox News and MSNBC people, they generally wanted to be entertainers. They tried to get into the entertainment industry, like to become actors and stuff like that, and they ended up not being able to do it, so they moved to journalism.
Right. Yeah, too much pride for porn, so they just next
Or they
journalism,
just,
quote unquote.
We'll finish with another crazy event in Mexico. There was a shootout between the federal police and this group of armed men that they were holed up in this barn or something, and the local villagers called the cops and said, "Look, there's these delinquents or something. Maybe they're cartel guys in this taking over this barn or something." So the police showed up with heavy duty gear. 42 people were shot and killed by the police. One police officer was killed in this incident. So this is being looked at.
Was it cartel or was it those like Zapatistas?
No, it's not clear who they were or who they were associated with, because there's a lot of armed brigades of people in Mexico now that are trying to like take back their towns.
Like what he was talking about in one of the early shows.
Yes.
Okay.
So and a lot of times they blur the line between who's the criminal and who's these gangs of citizens. So there's been 3 or 4 incidents in the last couple of years where Mexican federal police have murdered. They slaughtered a bunch of college students and then like hid them away.
Well, and what happened with that was it wasn't the police that actually did it.
Right.
It was cartel members, and the police covered it up, and the police or politicians informed the cartel members of who they want taken out. And so it was like basically cartel members got hired to do this job.
And these were like
college kids,
progressive
progressive
kids that were
college
like
kids.
protesters.
Yep.
Oh my God! Have the college kids murdered? So
that happened in Mexico in 1968 too. Look it up, 1968 massacre in Mexico, and same thing. So and it's like Kent State, but times 50.
So because of the level of slaughter in this incident, 42 guys dead. And there were fewer weapons found than there were guys killed. There were only 38 weapons found. They were pretty heavy duty, some of them, but there were fewer weapons than guys shot by the police. So that's a little weird. And just that talk about unbalanced, 42-1. It doesn't sound like a shootout. It sounds like they cornered them in the barn and basically burned it down on their heads.
Yeah,
like the end of Young Guns.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I mean, it's not the same, but
it's old school
the cop
Bonnie
in
and Clyde
Cleveland who
type
just
shit.
got acquitted because who jumped on the hood of the car?
Oh yeah,
and blasted him 15 more times
after
the shooting. After they had gotten, I think they said that they were shot 157 times total.
These two unarmed people in a car. And he got acquitted.
And then he jumped on the hood after it and blasted him 15 more times. He got acquitted because they could not specifically say that they would have lived if he wouldn't have done that. That's why he got acquitted. Because they could not say, oh, well, if he wouldn't have done that, they still would be alive.
Can't you get charged with mutilating a corpse or something? Isn't there something else they could get him with? That relates to another thing that we probably don't have time to talk about. That girl who she had that premature baby miscarriage, and then she threw it in the dumpster and went back to work, and then eventually went to the hospital because she was bleeding, and they're charging her with murder. But from what I heard, and this is hard to get the facts on, the baby was
stillborn.
Stillborn, and well, actually, what I think was happening is that it was still alive when it came out, but that it was so young that it would be statistically or medically impossible for it to be what do they call it, viable, for it to live, even with medical treatment. That's what I heard. So, and then she threw it out in the dumpster. They're charging her with murder because it was still alive when she did that. So that's pretty sketchy. I don't know.
So anybody that is expecting and doesn't want their baby or that happens to them, don't throw it in the dumpster. Take it to your local Catholic church and put it in the holy water basin. Because then you can say, I was trying to bless it and make sure it went to
thought it would come back to life.
Seriously, you're supposed to be able to drop your baby
any hospital
at the fire department or the hospital.
Maybe
that's
not
better
in
option,
every state, though.
There's signs.
I know you can hear.
There are public service signs in southern states that say, "Don't throw your baby in a dumpster. Take it to the fire department." So that's a real thing.
I've seen those stickers in L.A. Dumpsters in L.A.
Speaking of a double standard, let me roll this one at you. So Florida, where George Zimmerman is from. You heard about this guy, Michael Giles?
No.
He's an active duty guy. He was at a club at
Army?
downtown. Yeah, active duty, Army or Air Force One. He had dress blues on in the picture, but there's this fracas going on, and the instigator ends up hitting him in the back of the head, and he's fucking woozy, and the guy's still attacking him or whatever. He fires one shot from his personal...
The military guy?
Yeah, fires one shot, hits the attacker in the leg. Guy doesn't die. He escapes. It's clear that it was self-defense. He's doing 25 years. They got charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now, George Zimmerman walks
out of his car. You were
but
saying
this
walks,
guy's defending himself
like
like legit. Even the guy who attacked him corroborated. I was acting crazy. I assaulted him. It was a big, huge fight. There were all kinds of people fighting. Other witnesses. The detective recommended him for probation, and they still is mandatory sentencing 25 years. I just signed a petition.
Oh, was that the black guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And George Zimmerman stalks a kid who's walking home in his car, gets out of the car, tries to detain him, gives him orders. The kid, George Zimmerman calls the police. They tell him, don't do anything, don't get out of your car. Gets out anyway. Gets into an altercation. Maybe the kid probably attacked him or they started a fight, and he kills him, and he walks away. And now, of course, he has 7 arrests in his record
for
violence, domestic violence, firing guns, hit and run.
If you're a guy who's
got into another thing the other day.
He got shot, right?
Yeah, he got grazed.
But if you're a person who was defending Zimmerman, you gotta start getting off that horse at some point.
The only difference is I can see
that kid's dead.
Scumbag.
That kid's dead.
Well, the only difference is I could see between Zimmerman and this guy that you're talking about, the active duty guy, is one, the guy was in a club full of other people.
He wasn't. He was outside by this time.
Oh, he was outside. There weren't any other people around?
There were tons of people around. He had tons of corroborating people.
I don't know enough about anything to really... But I'm just saying that could be one thing, saying you're endangering other people by pulling a gun and shooting, whereas Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin were alone. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is the eminent domain thing. He was in... they both... Trayvon Martin lived in that neighborhood too, so really... But they say, George Martin was defending his house or neighborhood or whatever, whereas that guy's in this club.
Well, it was, and it's more the stand your ground.
And actually, he didn't go back in the club because it was so crazy in there. He was trying to find his friends, and then he got attacked. And in the course of defending himself from what he thought was a mob.
And he had a concealed carry.
Yeah, well, around the same time that the George Zimmerman thing happened, there was a black lady in Florida that I think it was her husband or ex-husband.
Wasn't that that was up in Maryland or something?
No, it was a woman in Florida. She was a victim of domestic violence.
Right.
Yeah, and she
fired a warning shot, right?
Up in the air.
A warning shot.
And was arrested. And convicted.
And is in jail probably, I think.
Yeah, she's in jail.
Yeah. It was for a while.
There was another one in New Jersey where a mother got charged, but they ended up dropping the charges.
I never understood why Trayvon Martin's lawyers couldn't give him stand your ground. Why couldn't they defend? Why couldn't they?
I thought that same thing.
Shouldn't Trayvon Martin have been able to stand his ground by
I'll
fighting?
tell you from what I read is that he was gone for 10 minutes before he came back and attacked Zimmerman. Zimmerman had lost sight of him for a certain amount of time, and the reason that they couldn't prove that, which may or may not be horseshit, is because he could have just kept going and went. He never had to go back.
Well, and the other thing, and I don't know.
It's a fucking 17-year-old kid, and maybe was even fucked up. So why is he going to make a good choice?
I don't know if this is how the law
George
works
Zimmerman's
or not.
George Zimmerman's a grown man. Should have made a better choice.
Also, George Zimmerman is over 18. Trayvon Martin is still a minor.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, he's a fucking he's a kid. He's not going to make a good choice.
All right.
No. I'm just saying. I don't know if that law, stand your ground, covers you if you're a minor. If you're a minor, if that applies to you.
Well, it should. I think there's a situation
because a lot of times law does not apply to kid. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Now, like you can't vote, you can't do this, you can't do that.
They're going to use the defense for a 15-year-old kid who shot another kid who was attacking his sister and trying to come in the house. That's the story. Like I just read about this the other day, and they're going to use stand your ground, the Castle Doctrine, to defend him.
So violent times, people. Actually, not as much as it used to be.
Speaking of violent times.
Anger management with Brian Richter. Let's see if you can throw one out in 5 minutes, Brian.
I got to go, and this one actually ends well. So it was a couple summers ago, and we're up in Antelope Canyon, and it's beautiful, man. It's just
where's that?
Northern Arizona. It's on the Navajo Nation. We went with I'm going to throw a plug for them now. The Big Thumb Clan. They own some side canyons that are Rattlesnake Canyon, Sheep's Head Canyon that you would have completely to yourself. So it's beautiful. We got a little cool guide named Gabriel. He played the flute for us down there. It was really nice.
Was he native?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to the upper Antelope, and it's kind of a zoo. There's a lot of people in there, and you're supposed to stay with your guide and move through. And they have these big rooms where you take these glorious pictures, and the guides will hop out and they'll throw all this dirt up in the air, and the light beams catch it. So
that's cool.
They ask you to stay with your guys, and there's these two, I'm guessing they're Russian dudes. So they're not staying with their group.
So you're on a hiking trip with a guide, a native guide, and there's a group of you, strangers.
And there's a lot of guides in there. Like they don't have exclusive access to this canyon. There's a bunch of families that do. So there's probably like, I would say 12, 15 trucks parked outside, just full of people. You know, there's huge lines in there. You're waiting as different tours move through. So they're asking you to stay with your people, and these two guys just aren't. So they're in the way of other people's shots, and they're kind of being bullies. And my little guy, he's just a little guy. I mean, he ain't even much bigger than Dawne. And he confronts these guys and says, "Hey, man, you're like, who are you with? You're supposed to stay with your guides. Like you're kind of messing up other people's shots."
Mm-hmm.
So this dude like towers over, and he's like you're messing up mine. And I'm like, this guy's been so cool to us, and this is sacred ground to the Navajo. So, and I got a soft spot. So immediately I get into my fucking flip my switch, and I'm gonna. So I poke him in the back, and I'm like, "Hey, bro," I said, "I know you didn't come over here all the way from Russia to get your fucking ass beat in this cave, because that's where it's going." So he's like, "Mind your business." I said, "This is my fucking business." I'm like, "This is my friend Gabriel, and you're not going to disrespect him in his house." I'm like, "You can fucking choose to move on, or we're going to throw down, dude. I'm not kidding." So he looks over my shoulder, and I know his boy's back there. So I said, "Oh, I know your boy's back there. I'm gonna fuck him up too." Huh. And then Jeff was with me, and Jeff said, "Oh no, nice. I got him." And so then I smile and I step up to that dude, and I'm like, "Yeah, shit just got real, huh?" And I'm like, "Now it's 2-on-2." And I said, "I promise you, dude, they're not gonna have to throw any dust up in here for about a fucking week." And so he's like, "I'll move," and I'm like, "Good fucking choice, but you're not doing it fast enough." Mm-hmm. So the whole time I'm like hovering right over him while he's getting his stuff, and then they leave, and it ended up being a kind of an emotional moment for that dude later, because he's like, "Man, nobody ever stuck up for me."
Guide.
Yeah. So
nice.
But I got out of that one without a scrap, but I didn't manage my anger very well, because I fucking flipped out right away. I was just ready to throw down.
Yeah, but somehow it worked. And
but you stopped yourself from actually throwing down.
You didn't just punch him.
No.
So, I mean, someone could.
It was a nice little. It wasn't a friendly poke in the back shoulder. I was like, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah, Paul and I were up on Kit Peak, which is the second highest observatory in the world, and it's
solar telescope.
It's awesome, yeah. And so we were looking through like this small $60,000 telescope, and you can see the rings of Saturn. I mean, we were blown away by that. And all this other great stuff. I want to get up there one night when the moon is up, so we can look at the moon with that telescope. You'll be able to see like little pebbles and little tiny moon people walking around up there.
Yeah.
And there was a guy there who he brought his dad, but he was just like, I don't know. He was just a kind of a white thuggy guy. Like I think he was just out of prison or something, not an educated fellow, and he was just like. He thought it was like what are those things called when you sit down and they do the presentation of the stars? Planetarium. That's what he thought he was doing. So when he got there and they were talking about constellations and science, he was just like looking around like, oh, this sucks. And he started like laughing like in moments when the guide was showing us stuff. And anyway, this doesn't really go anywhere. He eventually just like stopped talking and everything. But I thought I was going to have to say something. I'm like, dude, he was just like making fun of it was a group of 8 and then like a scientist telling us about the stars. And this guy's like, that's gay. Like saying, like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, why are you here? Oh. Who are you? And why are you in my...
So you didn't follow your own advice. You said when you're in one of those situations, you think of what I would do, you tone it down one notch, and then you do that.
Well, I was building up to that. And then I was like...
You didn't poke him in the back.
Yeah. All right. So great show. Dawn, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You were amazing. And whatever, guys, share the show on social media if you like it. Let us know if you're listening and what you want us to talk about. And have a good one.